Here is a paradox that should trouble anyone who follows modern military affairs. The United States Navy possesses hypersonic weapons that can travel faster than Mach 5. It fields stealth cruise missiles with radar signatures smaller than a sparrow. And yet, when American commanders need to strike a target 1,000 miles away, they reach first for a weapon system that first flew in 1976, entered service during the Reagan administration, and cruises along at a pace slower than most commercial airliners. The BGM-109 Tomahawk missile is, by any measure, old. It is subsonic in an age obsessed with hypersonics, and it remains the most feared weapon in the American arsenal. Now, I think it is worth asking why. Why does a missile designed during the Cold War continue to dominate every conflict the United States fights? To answer these questions, we need to understand what the Tomahawk actually is, where it came from, and what makes it irreplaceable, despite 4 decades of technological change. Let me start with the Tomahawk's origin story, because it's not what you might expect. The missile wasn't designed for the kinds of precision strikes we associate with it today. It was created for nuclear war. In 1971, the US Navy began studying a submarine-launched cruise missile small enough to fire from a standard torpedo tube. The 1972 Salt-Wamoy Treaty had frozen the number of ballistic missile submarines each superpower could field, and the Navy desperately needed an alternative way to deliver nuclear weapons. General Dynamics won the contract in 1976, and the original Tomahawk carried a W-80 thermonuclear warhead with a yield adjustable between 5 and 200 kilotons. What we think of as the conventional land attack Tomahawk came later in the mid-1980s as Block II, equipped with a 1,000-pound warhead and revolutionary DSM-AC guidance that brought accuracy down to roughly 10 meters. The Tomahawk's first operational deployment came in March 1983 aboard the battleship USS New Jersey. The Williams International turbofan engine that powers it trades speed for extraordinary range by sipping fuel rather than guzzling it. That is the defining characteristic that still matters today. So that is the origin. A Cold War nuclear delivery system that became the defining conventional precision weapon of the post-Cold War era. Now let us talk about what happened when it actually went to war, because the Tomahawk's combat record is unlike any other weapon in history. The first Tomahawk fired in anger left the USS San Jacinto at 2 a.m. on January 17, 1991. It was the first cruise missile ever used in combat, launched toward Baghdad. Over the Gulf War, 288 Tomahawks achieved an 85% hit rate. CNN reporter Bernard Shaw famously said the skies over Baghdad had been illuminated. The Tomahawk became the only weapon used to attack downtown Baghdad in daylight for most of the campaign. No pilot's life was risked. What followed was an unbroken chain of combat use. Bosnia in 1995, 13 missiles. Operation Desert Fox in 1998, 325 Tomahawks. Kosovo in 1999, 218 missiles. Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, 802 Tomahawks, more than all previous operations combined. Libya in 2011, 221 missiles. Syria in 2017, 59 Tomahawks, with 58 hitting their targets. Yemen in 2024, over 135 Tomahawks, with more than 80 fired in a single salvo. Add it all up. The Tomahawk has now been fired in combat more than 2,500 times. No other precision weapon comes close to this operational pedigree. A 1995 Government Accountability Office report captured it perfectly. Tomahawk missiles were able to strike heavily defended targets that, if attacked by aircraft, could have resulted in the unacceptable loss of aircraft and aircrews. Now for the question at the heart of this video, how does a missile that looks outdated continue to dominate? The answer lies in what has changed inside the same airframe. The Tomahawk that flies today bears little resemblance internally to the 1983 original. Block 1 from 1983 relied on terrain-matching guidance that required up to 80 hours of mission planning. Block 2 in 1986 added optical guidance, improving accuracy to 10 meters. Block 3 in 1993 integrated GPS, cutting mission planning to under an hour. The real transformation came with Block 4, Tactical Tomahawk, in 2004. A two-way satellite data link gave the missile the ability to be retargeted in flight to entirely new coordinates. An onboard camera transmits real-time imagery before impact. Most remarkably, Block 4 can loiter over a target area, circling while awaiting updated orders. This turns a cruise missile into something closer to an unmanned aircraft. Block 5, which entered service in 2021, represents the current IRT. Block 5A, the Maritime Strike Tomahawk, adds a seeker that restores anti-ship capability, allowing it to engage moving targets at sea. The Navy plans to convert up to 3,992 Block 4 missiles to Block 5 standard, extending each missile's service life by 15 years. So the Tomahawk has evolved continuously, but evolution alone does not explain dominance. To understand why the Tomahawk endures, we need to examine what it offers that nothing else can replicate. First, range without requiring air superiority. At over 1,000 miles, the Tomahawk can be launched from ships and submarines positioned far beyond enemy reach. No aircraft carrier needs to be in harm's way. No overflight rights need negotiating. No pilot risks capture. This political advantage has made it the preferred tool of every president since George H.W. Bush. Second, magazine depth. An Ohio-class submarine carries 154 Tomahawks. A single destroyer has 90 to 96 launch cells. When the US fires 80 Tomahawks in a single salvo, it saturates air defenses through volume. At $2.2 million per round, this is affordable. Compare that to hypersonic weapons at $30 to $40 million each. You could buy 14 Tomahawks for the price of one hypersonic missile. Third, survivability through low-altitude flight. The missile operates at 50 to 100 feet above ground, hugging terrain that makes radar detection extraordinarily difficult. Aaron Stein of the Foreign Policy Research Institute captured it precisely. The Tomahawk cruise missile is a near-perfect machine. It has been tested for decades and upgraded for the same amount of time. Now, you might be asking, what about newer weapons? The answer is that no single replacement covers the same ground. JASSM-ER approaches Tomahawk's range, but is air-launched only. LRASM is purpose-built for anti-ship warfare, but has far less range. Hypersonic weapons exist in vanishingly small quantities and cost 15 times more per shot. Perhaps the most telling evidence comes from Moscow. President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly singled out the Tomahawk by name, warning that missiles deployed near Ukraine would give a flight time to Moscow of 7 to 10 minutes. Russia's development of the SSC-8 cruise missile, which killed the INF Treaty, is widely assessed as a direct response to Tomahawk capability. Foreign Policy reported that before arms control talks, top Russian officials were preoccupied not with futuristic American weapons, but with the Tomahawk, a weapon first deployed in the Reagan administration. Meanwhile, allies are racing to acquire it. Japan is purchasing 400 Tomahawks. Australia Test fired its first in December 2024. The Netherlands fired its inaugural Tomahawk in March 2025. The United Kingdom is upgrading to Block 5. This international demand sustains a production line that might otherwise collapse. The Pentagon projects Tomahawk sustainment through 2048. That means missiles being recertified today could still fly combat missions 2 decades from now. But there is a constraint, and it is industrial capacity. RTX produces roughly 60 Tomahawks per year, yet the Navy fired over 80 in a single day against Houthi targets. Foreign sales are keeping the line alive, while the Pentagon requested 0 new Tomahawks in fiscal years 2024 and 2025. Hypersonics will not change this calculus. At current projections, the entire hypersonic inventory will number roughly 258 missiles against thousands of Tomahawks. Hypersonics will augment, not replace, the current arsenal. They open the door by destroying the most dangerous defenses. Tomahawk walks through it en masse. So let me bring this together. The Tomahawk's 4 decades of dominance reflects a weapon whose fundamental design remains strategically optimal, a range of 1,000 miles from dispersed platforms, a 1,000-pound warhead delivered within 10 meters, a cost low enough to fire in salvos of dozens, a combat record of 2,500-plus firings with 85% reliability, real-time retargeting that newer missiles cannot match. The deeper insight is that speed is not destiny. In an era mesmerized by hypersonics, the Tomahawk endures because warfare still demands affordable mass, operational flexibility, and political deniability of risk to human life. Every US military operation since 1991 has opened with Tomahawk salvos, not because it is the most advanced option, but because it is the only weapon that can be launched from a submarine lurking unseen, strike a target 1,000 miles inland, and do so at a price that allows firing 80 in a single night. No weapon in development replicates that combination, and until one does, the Navy's oldest missile will remain its most feared.